So speaking of um, decentralized communities and using DeFi or DAO protocols to do something with a new community, Bill is building a model to raise funding for community projects of different types. I guess that's a general way to describe what you're doing, Bill.
Yeah.
Can you please tell us more?
Yeah. Yeah. So welcome to the pool party. Like Howard said, we really are a tool for collaborative finance and trying to power what's essentially the next generation of investment clubs. We're pretty agnostic as to what you want to invest in. So our mission is essentially to make it easy for ordinary people to pool and manage funds for shared purchases or, again, investments. And I use the air quotes around investments because, this could be investing in a particular project, more akin to a Kickstarter, investing in ERC20 tokens, or investing in NFTs, and kind of sharing the investment decisions, making those as a community, kind of easy ways to move together, a little bit like Pri was talking about with what the DAO empowers, but we're focused on creating lots of mini DAOs that are community driven, that also leverage DeFi so that, funds aren't sitting idle and not earning interest. So a lot of the thinking around PoolParty came out of realizing a couple of challenges and where current solutions fail. We realized one, group coordination is extremely hard. That's a historical truth. We haven't figured out governance in the 10,000 years that humans have been alive, though we've made plenty of strides. There's also the issue of not enough trust. Even if I trust everybody with whom I'm pooling capital with because they're family or close friends, right? There's still the issue of, well, if I, Venmo my friend, what happens if he gets hit by a meteor or hit by a bus? Then, we have to try and figure out how to access his Venmo and all of that. And then there are also incentive problems with coordination, committing your capital to a pool that might take, a month or 2 months or a year to come together to the point where it can efficiently deploy that capital. There's an opportunity cost to that. And this is where, we really don't have great solutions for this in the Web 2 world. I don't know if anybody has tried to open a joint savings account with a group of people who are located all over the country or all over the world. But if you've actually been able to accomplish that, please talk to me. I'd be interested to hear the experience, since most banks require you to go into a branch. A lot of current fintech is still very P2P focused, but there needs to be a solution for many to many. And finally, a lot of solutions nowadays, you're missing out on earning yield on idle funds. And that's where, with PoolParty, we're trying to create a collaborative finance system that works. So our communities are pretty easy to create. You can find or create your own PoolParty. One example here is the Metacartel mini stake, where members of Metacartel came together, pooled ETH, and then staked it in an ETH2 node. We now have 2.5 ETH left over towards our next ETH staking node. And then you can use those pooled funds to purchase whatever you want. And while you're waiting to make those purchases, earn DeFi interest. The other example here is we have this DeFi Nation Signals DAO, which was meant to be and is meant to be a kind of community investment club that, they decided as a community, we won't make any investments until we've pooled $100,000 worth of DAI so that we can make some big moves. And while we're waiting on that goal to be accomplished, they're earning right now about 14% interest on the DAI. And one unique thing about PoolParty is that interest can either be rolled into the community or each user can withdraw their share of that interest. I think one of the really interesting things we've seen is this market for communities. Cryptocurrencies have surpassed $1 trillion at this point. The DAO market, which is a lot smaller, has recently taken off and surpassed about $1 billion locked in DAOs, which is really exciting. It's seen DeFi levels of growth. It started from a smaller place, but very confident that it will kind of replicate DeFi and exponentially grow over time. Our goal as the platform is to try and capture around $300 million of that kind of gross market value. And kind of where we fit in this whole ecosystem of DAOs and DeFi, we're a little bit like the Switzerland, or trying to be the Switzerland of the market. From the user perspective, we want to be like Facebook groups with a high yield bank account attached to it. From a technology perspective, pool parties are a fork of the Moloch DAO framework. We've changed Moloch DAO to better deal with kind of native DeFi tokens and also allow for members of each DAO to, again, withdraw their portion of interest earned on the DAO's funds. Right now, we've integrated with idle finance. We've got an integration with Aave in testing and hope to release that kind of next week or the following week. But because our smart contracts are also open source, we're open to building into and integrations with any DeFi protocol. We're also looking more strongly at building helper contracts for existing DAOs, which will start out focused on the Moloch DAO ecosystem, but then could someday expand to Aragon, DAOstack, Colony, whoever. Again, going back to this kind of $1 billion locked in DAOs, I think what we've seen over the past year is an opportunity missed, because you have these APYs on stablecoins hovering around 10% on average, which represents millions of potential yield lost on DAOs. And that yield lost is not only yield that could be returned to the members, but also a way to supercharge those DAOs to reach their goals faster. One big question around adoption in the crypto space is always kind of who is the customer here? And what we found thus far is we're starting small. We're starting with communities of people that range from like 5 to about 50 people that are focused on, at least right now, purchasing NFTs together, purchasing ERC20 tokens together, or creating ETH2 staking pools. We've made a conscious decision to stay crypto focused at the outset. I think, once stablecoins become more common, once the fiat on-ramps get easier and cheaper, we'll hope to kind of cross that chasm. And, we're really hopeful that the millennial and Gen Z mindset towards things being more grassroots driven, more collaborative, and more sharing economy focused will allow us to cross that bridge and tap into a much larger group of users. Just to give a sense of kind of where we've seen actual demand, in the first 8 weeks since we launched, we saw around $60,000 put into different pool parties. We've seen 6 pool parties created. Right now we're focused pretty heavily on scaling solutions because gas has made the Ethereum mainnet almost unusable for DAOs, but we do see the demand is there for these kind of small goal-based investment clubs. For business model purposes, just to give a sense of what we've been doing and thinking about is, we want to make the barrier to creating a pool party really low. It's a web form, it's free. We just take some of the yield that the DAO earns. On the other side, we are starting to see this market for paid boost where DAOs start developing particular needs or particular other ecosystem players that they want to integrate with. And so one of our things that both we can accomplish and others can build and partner with us or other DAO platforms are these kind of paid boosts to create those integrations. Just to give a little bit of the backstory, we started focus much more on cause-driven DAOs, people who wanted to invest in public goods or community activism projects. One thing we realized was even those require the community to be two things: one, goal driven, and two, kind of like a little bit close-ended. So that's where we came up with the idea of PoolParty. When we were coming up with the idea, we saw, hey, why not leverage DeFi, or give these DAOs an easy option to leverage DeFi? We launched in November of last year. And right now, in addition to focusing on the scaling solution that basically every Ethereum dApp is focused on right now, we're really kind of building out the initial use cases we've seen, which is kind of pooling for NFT purchases, ERC20 purchases, which is closer to like a traditional decentralized investment club, plus ETH2 staking. Since more and more people want to do ETH2 staking via DAO, it costs around $64,000 to stake into an ETH2 node nowadays. So that's another perfect use case for having a smallish group of people come together to be able to do something together and make a joint investment. Just to give a sense of who PoolParty was created by Elf and Joshua Lapidus. I come from a law and technology background. Joshua comes from a business development background. We were both kind of pulled into Web3 a couple years ago, based on our excitement for it to disrupt the industries we were in. For me, that was law. For him, it was ride sharing. We both did stints at Consensus before landing at PoolParty. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. My email is bill@peepsdemocracy. Joshua's is joshua@peepsdemocracy. Our platform is live at poolparty.club. And you can also try and find me in the Slack or Gather later.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bill. And before we let you go, we had one question that we hope you can answer. Came from Tim Fitzpatrick. He asked, he thinks this would be a great solution for nonprofits and social movements. How do you vet those looking to raise funds to make sure that it's not abused by people running scams?
Yeah, so we really have thought deeply about that question, because on one hand, we don't want to exclude people. One of the great advantages of Web3 is that it is relatively permissionless. On the other hand, we don't want people to use our UI to raise money for nefarious purposes. So the solution that we've come up with right now is that we can control who uses the UI. If we see something that obviously violates US law or other countries' laws, we can take down their access to the user interface. The smart contracts, though, we don't control. It's controlled by the people that launch them, that join the DAOs. So that really kind of leans into the permissionless part. In the future, we are hoping to kind of gradually decentralize the platform and release a governance token that will put more of that power into the community's hands. I think that's something that Web2 companies missed the boat on, which was they created centralized ways of user content moderation. It hasn't worked well. So we think we can really lean into decentralization and community governance to allow for content moderation. But, to the point about being a perfect use case for nonprofits and kind of activists, absolutely. We think, please come fund public goods and causes on the platform as well. We're happy to talk with you and work with anybody on that.